the last episode was a bit of a big one. You know, we have a new game at the top of the list. Can we find something to beat it today? I guess time will tell on that. But this episode is a bit of a different one because I was like, you know what? A whole bunch of these games that I've ranked, at least a small handful of them, are games that I've played in the past. Like, games that I got with my Game Boy, like Kirby's Block Ball, or Alleyway, or Super Mario Land, or whatever. But I haven't looked at all of those games. There are certain games that I have in my collection that I've had since the late 90s, or possibly early 2000s, but I'm going to say late 90s, that I've never actually played on stream. Or maybe I played them very briefly and didn't rank them at the time, for one reason or another. So, yeah, I figure I really want to go back and just play all of them. So I've got just a stack of Game Boy Color or Game Boy regular cartridges with me, and I'm just going to go through them all. And yeah, so as you can see, Wario Land at the top of the list, and of course we have a new bottom 10 game with the irredeemably awful Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The fact that this is only the 5th worst really says something about the games below it. The fact that, like, being worse than Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is a harsher insult than anything else I can think of off the top of my head. But, Game Boy camera, I never owned the Game Boy camera, I'm sorry. Although, to be fair, I wouldn't have a clue how I would even do that on stream anyway. Since, I mean, the Game Boy camera, like, I'm playing all these through the Game Boy player, and it's like, well, how am I supposed to, like, I've got to, like, hold up the GameCube to my face? Like, yeah, I don't know how I would do that one. But, okay, here's the first game we're going to do today. I'm going to do this one fairly briefly, I think. I am starting a bit later, because I ran out of... because I was a bit busy in the afternoon. So, Metroid 2 Return of Samus, a game that I played as a kid. The thing about this game is, I've got to be honest, I didn't know what to do or where to go playing it back in the day. But going into this now, this is a game that I have actually spent the last week just playing through the entire game. Like, I actually sat down and was like, you know what, I had this game as a kid, but I never sat down and finished it. Oh, that's right, I forgot I didn't actually have the ability to roll on ceilings or whatever. Well, whatever. But yeah, Metroid 2 on the Game Boy. So it's an interesting game. You know, you might have played Metroid 1 on the NES. You might have even played Super Metroid. And yeah, I'm just going to show off just a brief bit of gameplay just so you can see what this looks like, how it works. So like here, oh, we've got an extra E-Pack, energy tank, whatever. Not an E-Tank, that's Mega Man. But yeah, as I say, yeah, Game Boy camera probably isn't really going to work for this series. And as I say, I don't have one anyway, so it's not really an option for me. But yeah, if you've ever played Metroid 1 on the NES, yeah, this basically takes that and was like, you know what? What if we changed a few things? So you're no longer on the planet Zebes or Zebeth or whatever it's called, whatever the pronunciation is. No, now you're on planet SR-71 or whatever it's called. Whatever the name is, I cannot remember offhand. But like I say, I did actually make an effort to play through this entire game in the last week because, like I said, as a kid, I never figured out how to play it. I could never get very far into it. But I was like, no, I'm going to be a good boy, and I'm going to actually just beat the whole game. And I did. I actually played through the whole thing. And it is not an easy game, so, you know, I hope I at least get a little bit of thanks for making some effort for that. But anyway. Yeah, Metroid 2. What can I say about this one? Well, you think about how it changes compared to the original. Well, some stuff is the same, so you've still got the missiles, like in the first game, you're using to open doors. You also use them to fight bosses, as you would expect. You've also got the Ice Beam, which is very important at the end of the first game. And yeah, kind of the same deal here as well, where at the end of Metroid 2, you are also going to need the Ice Beam for that. So, for the record, so I've beaten the first 2 games. As I say, I went back and beat this game, like, in the last couple of days. I didn't beat it until then, but having since gone back and actually finished this one, I can articulate my thoughts on it. And compared to the first game, I mean, the improvements that this makes, well, you can hold down the button to shoot, not especially fast, where it does work. I don't think you could do that in the first one. I don't remember being able to. So that's a welcome feature. I think the biggest improvement that this has compared to Metroid 1... Also, yeah, the colour scheme on this is actually really good for, yeah, this being a monochrome game that they're doing on, you know, Game Boy Color. This is about as good as it was ever going to look. But yeah, the biggest upgrade that this game has over the first Metroid is the fact that when you're trying to grind for health and missiles, like when you're having to use all of them, in this game, it's nowhere near as bad, because in Metroid 1, if you died and had to get all that energy back... Oh, here we go, it's a spider ball. So this thing is quite important, as you'll see in a bit. But as I say, Metroid 1, if you die, it takes ages to get your health and missiles back, and you start off with basically nothing if you die in the first game, and it kinda sucks. Like, having to get all of it back, because it takes ages. It doesn't matter how good you are, because you have to farm, and it takes all day. It's like, imagine if in Zelda, you didn't have those, health, like those couple of screens on the world map where you can refill all your health. Imagine if in Zelda you didn't have those screens, and instead you just had to keep killing the same enemies over and over to get the health back. It would suck. And, you know, it's a good thing that Zelda 1 didn't make you do that. And the fact that Metroid made you did it, despite the fact that that game came out months afterwards, is a bit exasperating. Basically, you're best off just trying not to die at all, if you can help it. But thankfully, this game has certain spots, like there's a few spots on the map where you can get your health and missiles refilled almost instantaneously. Okay, so here we go. So here's where you actually have to fight the Metroids. And so you note the counter on the bottom where it says 38. That's the number of Metroids that are on the map. You have to kill all of them to beat the game. So that's one of the big changes that this has compared to Metroid 1. The fact that in Metroid 1, you only had 3 bosses, and one of them you fought right at the end of the game, basically. This game, they decided to go a different route, and instead make it so that you have just basically a ton of Metroids to fight. So, you know, you've got dozens of them. I mean, you start with 40. So, yeah, basically I've barely killed any at this point. But yeah, there are 40 on the map, and basically it takes, yeah, it can take a while just to go through the game and destroy all of them. But I really want to, well, just show off what you actually do here. So, here's one of the spots where you get the health back. Try not to get myself hit, because I think you fall off if you do. There we go. So, yeah, like this, for instance, is really useful, because I can easily get all my health back. And that's generally just kind of how Metroid 2 works. In some ways, it is a noted improvement over the original, but there are some big problems with it that were not fixed. So, perhaps the most obvious problem, certainly when you play it at least, is the fact that you don't, or shall I say, you cannot shoot diagonally. There is no diagonal shooting in this game, which they fixed in Super Metroid. And I must admit, Super Metroid is one that I would like to go back and finish. I've never done it, though. I've just never played through that game. But that's something to fix at some point. Now, I'm going to say for the record, really my big problem with Metroid 2, and really my source of frustration, because I had a fair amount of frustration trying to finish this game. Not necessarily because of the game being difficult, but because I just don't think the controls in this are nearly as good as they could be. So, as I say, you can't shoot diagonally, you can only shoot in the cardinal directions, and when you're fighting the Metroids, that ends up being a big problem, because often they're positioned at diagonals, and they go over their way to do this in some cases, where, yeah, you're essentially trying to hit them, but you have to keep jumping and repositioning yourself, and it just ends up being awkward and just not much fun to do. But I think, honestly, my biggest complaint with the controls in Metroid 2, and this is one that you're not going to see here because I need to play further in the game to get to it, is you have this jump upgrade that you get later on. So you get a couple of upgrades to your jump. One of them allows you to jump about twice as high, which is quite useful, and you will want that later on in the game. But the other one sounds great in theory, but in practice it ends up being a pain in the arse to do. So basically, at one point, you get, I think it's the Varia suit. And basically what the Varia suit does is that it allows you to... Okay. It allows you to keep jumping in midair. So basically, you do a big jump in midair. And also, if you pause the game, it tells you how many Metroids are left in the area that you're in. Also, yeah, this... I always found these parts annoying in the first game. It's a lot less annoying when you can just spin attack the enemies, but... Or screw attack, whatever. But no, that comes later. But anyway, yeah. In terms of... Yeah, in terms of, yeah, the controls. Like, that kind of multiple jump mechanic, again, sounds great in theory, but in practice it just doesn't work very well. Because the timing on it is so strict that you basically have, I don't know, like maybe a 5-frame window to do it, and if you press it like a frame too late, it just won't let you jump. And because of that, you're often going to be in situations where it's like, oh, you jumped a frame late, and now you're just going to fall all the way back down, like possibly several screens in some cases, and it is the most annoying thing possible. It's like, why is it done like this? It's kind of like, I mean, if you've ever played the Shinobi games, you know, like Shinobi 3 comes to mind, and I think Revenge of Shinobi, where they have the double jump. And it feels like that, where even when you know how to do it, it still feels bad. And I didn't like doing the jump in that game. But in this game, it feels worse. Oh, actually, yeah, here's another complaint about the controls while I'm here. So, okay, you got the spider ball. Now, to move the spider ball, you basically press left or right, or up or down, depending on which directions you can move in. And if you hold that direction, you can keep moving in that direction. However, if you do this, for instance, and then you press down, you would think that you could press right to go, you know, to the right. But no, you have to press up. And it throws me off every single time. And I did check this game's retro achievements page out of interest, and I've seen other people make the same complaint, so I don't think it's just me. Oh, is it? I forgot this game even had a double defense thing. Yeah, the space jump, that's the one I was thinking of. But yeah, Metroid 2, as I say, the controls really are the kind of source of frustration. But the other big source of frustration is, as mentioned in chat, the lack of any kind of in-game map is a problem. Also, I think sometimes you get in areas like this where you can kind of cheese the bosses, like this. So, like, you get a whole bunch of different types of Metroid, so that's, like, the Alpha Metroid, which is, like, the easy one. But later on, you get, like, the Gamma Metroids, the Zeta Metroids, the Omega Metroids, and then you got, like, the final boss. So, you got a whole bunch of different types of them. And the problem is the fact that you do literally have dozens of them to fight. And the problem there is there's a lot of repetition with the boss fights, which wasn't a problem in the first game. I don't think it's a problem with Super Metroid. Again, I haven't played that one nearly as much. Like, that's a game I never finished it. But I from what I remember, that game had only a few bosses, I think. Also, yeah, you can get pushed out of the doors as well. And I think if that happens, the boss's health actually resets. So I think occasionally there are kind of like hidden areas or whatever, but I don't think there are any in this bit. But yeah, you think about this game, there are certain improvements that are made over the first one. Like, the ice gun is definitely better than it was in the original. I think partly just because of the fact that you can hold the button down to shoot fast. Like, or you can just mash the button, which, again, works better than it does in the first one. But you also see stuff like this. Like, the hit detection isn't very good. Sometimes it looks like you hit the enemies, but it's like, if you don't hit the dead center of the enemy sprite, half the time it just doesn't count. And the Metroids have weird hitboxes as well, where for most of them, it's like you can only hit the lower body. Or sorry, the upper body. If you hit the lower body, some of them it just doesn't count a hit. And again, like you see there, like the hit detection just isn't as good as it ought to be. Also, yeah, I didn't really have a big problem with running out of missiles, because, again, there are spots on the map that you can use to get missiles back. It's just a case of memorizing where those spots are. Again, my big problem with it, more than anything, was just the controls. There was, like, certain frustrations had with some of the Metroids you fight near the end of the game, but they weren't, like, so hard that it was like, oh my god, how am I supposed to beat this? It was more just a case of figuring out the technique that the game expects you to do to beat it. And once you know the techniques, they're doable. You know, it's not nearly as bad as some of the other games I've played. Possibly in the series. Like, I mean, honestly, you know, I think about, like, the first boss in that piece of shit Indiana Jones game I played on the last stream. And I mean, that is certainly a worse designed boss than anything that this game has to offer. Not necessarily harder, but definitely worse designed. Now. But yeah, like there, it looks like I hit the enemy, but instead the game just counted against me because I didn't hit the dead center of the sprite. Again, there are just problems like that where it just, in areas it feels rough, even though, I mean, this game was made 5 years after the original Metroid. There are, like, you think that the issues that I've mentioned could have been fixed by 91. And that's really kind of the issue. It improves on the original in some places, but given the gap in time between the production of these games, I don't think it improves on it nearly enough. Because, again, 1991... You know, I mean, you may think of a game like Super Mario Land from 1989, like, which was a pretty janky game, but also, like, that was at the very start of the system's life. I mean, it was competing with Game & Watch and Tiger Electronics. But by the end of 1991, the Game Boy was against much tougher competition. It was going up against, you know, the Sega Game Gear and the Turbo Express, like, systems like that. And you think about what was on those systems, or, you know, obviously the Turbo Express was literally just a handheld version of a PC engine, so whatever was on HuCard, you could play on there. And there were some really good games on there by 91. And the Game Gear, I'm pretty sure it had a version of Wonder Boy 3 on it. I'm not sure if I'd necessarily say it's a better game, but I don't know, maybe there's a case to be had there. That's a game I need to play more of, actually, now that I think about it. And again, like, the lack of any kind of in-game map is a massive problem for a game like this. But anyway, there's not really a whole lot that I can show off with this game without spending, like, an hour trying to get to the next part. You know, if you've ever played a Metroid game, you kind of know what to expect. But thinking about where it goes on this list. Also, I did decide to drink cola today, because I used to drink a lot of that as a kid. I thought, why not? You know, to fit with the theme of playing the games I used to play in the past. I mean, when you think about Metroid 2 and how it fares in a modern context, obviously you have the remake. For the record, I've not played the remakes. I just didn't bother. I was like, you know, if I'm going to play this game, I'm going to go back and play the original as I played it back in the day. But, you know, is the remake a better game? It's possible. You know, I would imagine it probably fixes a lot of the problems that the original game has. And certainly Super Metroid did fix some of those problems, like, you know, being able to shoot diagonally, having an in-game map, you know, that sort of thing. Just simple quality of life additions, and things that you would probably expect in a game by 1991. Like Contra, you know, had the ability to shoot in 8 directions on the NES, and that was 1988. But, you know, is it a better game than Alleyway? Another game that I played as a kid? I mean, I would say that Alleyway is a game that sets out to do one thing and does it well. But it's also a thing that offers a very thin experience. You know, it's literally just break the bricks, and that's the whole game. Which was good for 1989, when, again, you were just competing with, like, Tiger Electronics games. Like, you know, I mean, like, playing games with a pen and paper by yourself is probably better than those. But, you know, for 1989, it was a great game. But by 1991, the standards had increased a lot. I mean, even by the end of 1989, it was competing with the Atari Lynx. So, you know, Metroid 2, for all its faults, has a lot more to offer than Alleyway. So I'm going to say it's better than that. You know, it's certainly the game that I would recommend playing over this. You know, if you're going to play one of these games, Metroid 2 has a lot more to offer. So I'm going to say it's better than Alleyway. It's definitely better than Street Heroes. It's better than Flappy Special. It is better than Super Mario World 7. Because that game is just kind of cheap. And Metroid 2 is kind of cheap in places as well, where you can't see where you're falling to a lot of the time. Like falling down the screen, or jumping, or running forwards, or whatever. Where often you may land on an enemy by accident and take damage. Because it's one of those games. And this game certainly has that problem worse than any of the other ones in the series, I would say. However, yeah, I mean, still far better than something like Super Mario World 7, which, I don't know, just felt like a worse version of Adventure Island 3. Because it basically is. But yeah, it's better than Sonic 6. It's better than Buster Move 2 Arcade Edition, which barely resembles the arcade game at all, really, aside from the basic gameplay. It's better than Track Meet. Is it better than Kirby's Block Ball? Like, here's the thing. I have played through this game. Like, I was like, you know, I'm going to sit down and play this one. I wasn't sure if I was going to beat it, but I did. Kirby's Block Ball is one that I also played fairly recently, and played a few levels in, and just didn't bother to play further. And Kirby's Block Ball, I feel like if you want to actually beat the game, is probably far more painful to play through. It's kind of funny, because Metroid 2, from people I've talked to, has a reputation for being one of the hardest Metroid games, possibly. I don't... Again, having only played through the first two, I don't know how true that is. But maybe that is the case. Yeah, so, I mean, this is the same thing for me. This was one of the games I had back when I was like 5 years old, 6 years old, however old I was, when I got the Game Boy Pocket. But yeah, I'd say this is better than Kirby's Block Ball. It's better than Amazing Tater. Yeah, I'd take this over Amazing Tater. Kirby's Dream Land is a far breezier... I don't know, probably a more instantly gratifying game to play. Like, if you play that game, like, that's a game that you play if you just want a good time. But it's also a very short time. Like, you know, there's, what, 5 levels and you're done? Metroid 2 certainly has far more in terms of length to offer rather than Kirby's Dream Land. But I would say Kirby's Dream Land has better controls. But there just isn't nearly enough. Now, it's one of those games you may play, you know, if you just want a short, sort of easier game to play through. A bit like Felix the Cat now that I think about it. And thinking about it, I would say that Metroid 2 is better than both of these, for all its faults. It is a more interesting game to play through. Felix the Cat does have more, you know, I mean, that's a fair bit longer than Kirby's Dream Land, which is ultimately why it's higher on the list. It's better than King of the Zoo. Is it better than Tetris Blast? You know, before I started this series, I would have said that Tetris Blast was the better game. In my head, that game would have been much higher on the list, but playing it now, the game mode selection just isn't nearly as good as regular Tetris, which is why it's only 37. It's better than Tetris Blast. It's better than Gargoyle's Quest. Because, like, the save points in Metroid 2 make it more palatable to play when you die. Gargoyle's Quest, I seem to recall that game tends to throw you back further if you die. Maybe I'm misremembering that, but that's how I remember it. Yeah, it's better than Gargoyle's Quest. It's better than the monochrome version of Dropzone. Because that game, it's just sometimes hard to see what's going on in terms of projectiles, and that can be a problem. But it's not better than Mega Man 5. Mega Man 5 and Mega Man 4, I think they do more to... Like, they make more of an effort to try to improve on the Mega Man formula. Like, or certainly, at the very least, change it up so that they don't just feel like inferior rehashes of the NES games the way that the first three games felt like. You know, Mega Man 4, they added that whole system where you've got, you know, you collect all the points. A bit like Mega Man 1, like, had a point system where it didn't do anything. They were like, okay, let's bring something back a bit like that actually has an effect on the gameplay. And they carry that into Mega Man 5, but that game, they also completely changed up the stages and bosses, just make it its own original game that isn't simply taking all the Robot Masters and the stages from Mega Man 5 and 6, which they easily could have done, but they were like, no, we're going to do this one differently. So yeah, it's not as good as Mega Man 5. I mean, Game Boy Gallery, I mean, that is basically a collection of not Metroid, it's a collection of Game & Watch games. And as much as I like those games, the Game & Watch Gallery series did it better. You know, if you want to play those games, generally I'd say go for those. So yeah, I'm going to say Metroid 2 is our new number 34. You know, I'd say it's quite good, definitely worth playing, but, you know, certainly there are better options out there. Okay, so the next game I want to do, Metroid 2 again. There is a Zelda Game & Watch game. I've always wanted to play that one, but I never really got the chance to. Because on Game & Watch Gallery Advance, it's an unlockable, but you have to, like, max out the score in every other game to get it, and I was never good enough to do so. But yeah, the next game I'm going to take a look at with a very beaten up label, and I think this is how it came as well when I first got it, is a good old R-Type. So, how does R-Type fare on the Game Boy? Let me get the colour scheme set up. Here we go. Let's go for the inverted. So here we go. R-Type for Nintendo Game Boy. So yes, I have inverted the colours. I don't think this game has a custom colour scheme. So yes, by IREM, developed by Bits, the makers of such classic games. Okay, this probably looks better without being inverted, but whatever. The developers of such classic games as Amazing Spider-Man 2. But okay, let's see how R-Type fares on the Game Boy. Yeah, I think that's how it came when I first got the cartridge. Maybe I'm misremembering. Yeah. So hey, we got a black space instead of white space, which is how it normally appears on the Game Boy. Does it make it easier to play? Actually, it's hard to tell. Okay, try to get power-ups early on. Here we go. So, as you see, you got the beam. And you know what? It has to be said, the music is actually converted. Oh, okay. The music was actually converted very well. It is recognisably R-Type. As much as you can look at it and, you know, say, oh, well, it's, you know, it's Game Boy. Ooh. Like, they've thrown a lot of sprites around, it has to be said. Like, you look at the amount of enemies on screen, and it doesn't have crazy slowdown like a few other games I've played in this series. And, yeah, I mean, this is an interesting game to cover. Because, yeah, this is one of those games that got ported to a whole bunch of systems. And, in fact, this is going to be the case for, you know, I think a couple of the other games I'm going to look at later. Just, for whatever reason, a lot of the games I had were games that were just available on various formats. Come on, let's see if I can get that cool diagonal laser. I want to show that off. No, this is the other one. 2... Actually, this might be the better weapon for this anyway. Okay, let's try not to get zapped. Zap! Okay. But yeah, I mean, this may actually look better on a monochrome screen. I mean, yeah, like Metroid 2, that's an interesting one, because that's a game that absolutely looks better on the not the Super Game Boy, the, yeah, Game Boy player. I think I'm playing them right now. Okay, so now we are getting a bit of slowdown. I think it's just struggling to, I think it's because of all the diagonal lines it's having to render. But yeah, so R-Type, as I say, this got ported to various systems. This got ported to the Master System, which is a really good version. It got ported to the PC Engine, which I seem to recall is even better. Like, yeah, R-Type really got the long end of the stick when it came to home ports, it must be said. Like, I seem to recall even, like, the Commodore 64 version was quite good. And I mean, hell, like, even... Oh, is the game loud? Okay, let me turn it down a bit. Okay. So, like I say, like, even, like, the ZX Spectrum seemed to get a really good version. It's a very interesting case, because typically what happens is you might get 1 or 2 decent conversions on various platforms. Oh. Okay, I forgot that speed you up. But, yeah, then you get a whole bunch of ports that are rubbish, and there is certainly... there is certainly games I'm going to look at today that did have rubbish ports on, yeah, on various platforms. Yeah, thankfully this game isn't quite as mean as something like Gradius when you die. Like, I mean, yes, you lose your power-ups, but it's... recovering is more doable. You know, like, you're not having to collect, like, 5 power-ups to get an option. But as I say, like, this game, they really do throw a lot of sprites around, and there's a lot less slowdown than you would probably expect for it being a Game Boy game. Like, for the people that made Amazing Spider-Man 2 on Game Boy, they did an impressive job. And I do find it interesting that, like, IREM seem to really be fond of hiring bit studios to port their games over. I mean, why they got a British studio to port their games over, I'm not entirely sure. Given the sheer amount of, you know, contract developers that were available in Japan. But maybe they made the right decision. They did also convert R-Type 2, I think. I think that was also them. And they also made a conversion of... what was it? Ninja Spirit. Yeah, I think Ninja Spirit was one of theirs. But yeah, I remember this level giving me a lot of grief when I played it. Ugh. Most because the snake bastard that just never leaves you. Yeah, it's one of those things, you just have to know what its pattern's going to be in advance. Also, yeah, you can put the thing behind you as well. I don't remember what the pattern is. I always struggle on this bit. I was never good at it. I think there are a couple of levels missing from this game. Not that I'm going to be able to get to them, because the second boss is a bastard. Also, yes, Bits, they did make a few Supervision games. To be fair, they are generally the better games on the Supervision, because, let's face it, all the ones made by Bond Treasure were horrible, as a rule. Yeah, I seem to recall this boss also takes ages, no matter what you do. Maybe that's just me being rubbish, but I never really figured out a good way to beat this one. I want to say this is easier on the Master System. I think just because on the console versions you have more room to move around. I think cutting the room down makes this part a lot harder than it is in other versions. Yeah. I actually want to try to get to the 3rd level, because that one's quite interesting, but unfortunately the second boss is being a twat. Do not care. Like, I mean, who cares about high score on a Game Boy game? It's just one of those things that just kind of exists. Well, I may as well just get myself killed there, because I didn't realise it was going to spawn me at the checkpoint, but whatever. Hold on, I'm trying to, like, multi-manage things. See, this is the problem with this boss, is the fact that, like, it's got, like, just massive amounts of, like, invulnerability frames. And your weapon doesn't go backwards, I don't think. So basically, if the boss comes out on the left, then you're screwed, because you can't shoot to the left. I don't know. Is there a difficulty setting? Is there like super easy mode that makes it possible for me to beat it? I will say for the record, I have gotten further into this before, but I don't think it's going to be happening today. I think this boss has just decided it wants to be a bastard. Oh, also, yeah, I forgot about the way the laser in this works, or how it works. You basically have to have the thing equipped. Like, you need to have the option with you, and it's refusing to go left. Because it felt like being a bastard. Yeah, for the record, I always hated this boss. Like, any boss where, like, 90% of it is just going to be invincibility frames. No, screw these bosses. I never liked them. Yeah, and then you get stuff like that. Yeah, race driving on Game Boy. I've got to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the Game Boy version. I think it's a huge technical achievement, I just don't think it plays nearly as well as it ought to. Yeah, this one you just have to, like, spam until the game lets you win. And then sometimes like this, it doesn't even let you do that. Yeah. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do if I can only shoot to the left? Or, no, if I can only shoot to the right. Hold on, does this game have a level select? I want to at least show off the 3rd level, and fuck this level. No, apparently it doesn't. They couldn't be bothered with that. It's not possible to kill this piece of shit, is it? Yeah. I mean, I can tell you this boss fight is harder than anything in Metroid 2. I'll say that straight up. Like, Metroid, the entirety of Metroid 2 is easier than this boss. Well, I guess it's one more try. And if the game doesn't like it, it's sod off. God. Imagine putting a hard mode in a shoot 'em up. Like, what kind of sicko you have to be to do that? Yeah. Suffice to say, I was never very good at these types of games. Yeah, like that. And let's be honest, you think about games like this, and you think about the alternate options that you have for this game in particular, where, you know, like I say, the Game Boy by this point was competing with the PC Engine and the Game Gear. And you could play this game on both of those systems, because the Game Gear had the Master Gear converter. Yeah, like that had the Master Gear converter. And the PC Engine had yeah, again, the handheld system. So you could actually just straight up play the PC Engine version on a handheld. But anyway, you know what? Since the game decided it wants to be a piece of shit today, is there an easy option? Also, yeah, if you want to see what this game looks like, yeah, as it would have looked a bit more like on the Game Boy. Yeah, easy my arse! God. Yeah, if you think that's easy, I've got a boat to sell you. Anyway, yeah. Oh. Yeah, I was looking up a guide just in case. But, yeah, since the game has decided it wants to be a piece of shit today, I'm going to be a piece of shit to it back and cut it short. But where does it go on this list? Well, let's think about, like... Okay, let's think about Metroid Fighter Deluxe. A game that also existed on consoles. I mean, that was basically a conversion of a NES game. I would argue not quite as good. Also, yeah, R-Type DX. Well, I mean, you can if you're really good at shoot-em-ups. I'm just not one of them. As I say, shoot-em-ups are not my thing. Or, like, they're my thing up to a certain point, but I would never claim to be even remotely any good at them. I have gotten further in this game before, but yeah, I think as a kid, that was as far as I could get. So, yeah, I mean, is it better than Metroid Fighter Deluxe? I'm not sure if it's much better. It's a very well made conversion, but in a world where you could play better versions on a handheld around that same time, it's hard to recommend. I mean, this would have been the most accessible version on handheld at the time. It does have that going for it. It's a very well made conversion. I think really my issues with this game, they don't stem from the ports. They really just stem from the original game being bastard hard. But at the same time, like, I could get further in the Master System version. Like, the Master System version, I got up to, like, I don't know, level 6. So I think it is just a case of this version just being straight up harder than other versions. Certainly when compared to console versions, at least. Where I think the lack of screen space does make it harder to play. And that's definitely the big thing that works against it. It's a well-made conversion, but it's limited somewhat by the format it's on. Like, the Game Boy itself drags it down below what it could be. I've played a bit of Gaia-Res, but not enough to really have an opinion on it. Metroid Fighter Deluxe is kind of just a NES game, but not quite as good. There is no NES version of R-Type. I mean, this isn't really directly just a straight port of another game. Or another version of this game. Like, it is kind of... You know, they had to rework it for the Game Boy. I mean, I'd say it's worth playing over that. It's better than Metroid Fighter. It's better than A-Force Armor Force. I think the presentation on it's a little better. Armor Force may arguably play a bit better, though. Yeah, I'm not sure it really goes much higher. I mean, like, I would certainly rather play Paint a Momo P over this. Like, it's not as good as Paint a Momo P. Doraemon 2 is a more interesting game. I think I would play that over this. And honestly, I think I would take Mega Man 2 over this. As much as the audio in that game might be painful, that game is certainly worse presented. You could argue that game is too easy. But at the same time, if I was going to play R-Type, I would rather play a different version of it. Like, this isn't the version I'm going to go for nowadays. It was a good version at the time. But yeah, I would put this below Mega Man 2. But it is better than Looney Tunes Carrot Crazy. So I'm going to say it's our new number 87. So there we go. R-Type on the list. Top 100 game. Okay, so third game. Okay, what's a good one to follow this with? You know what, here's one that I've been curious about if it is any good. I've tried playing this one more recently, and I can't make up my mind on it. It is Wave Race, the original before they made a sequel for Nintendo 64. But let's see what the original's like. The one that people don't tend to talk about as much. But here we go. Wave Race. Going for a nice blue colour scheme. So let's see what Wave Race has got going on. So we've got one linked. my name of course is Now let's go for JP. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. So we've got Circuit and we've got Slalom. So from what I remember, Circuit is just normal racing. Slalom, well, it's kind of like slalom on a ski slope. You have to keep, you know, you go left side of one cone, right side of the other cone. They have like different symbols depending on which side you have to go on. So here we go. Course record by R in the Bahamas. Okay, here we go. So I get to go second. So this is a bit of an interesting one. So again, people... Oh, sorry, I forgot this is one of those weird games where you have to press B to accelerate, which is kind of odd. In any other game, it would be the A button, but whatever. But here we go. So yeah, you may notice this looks very similar to the boat levels in Micro Machines. Like, this is just like the training level in that game. Which is interesting, because this game was 1992. Micro Machines, like the NES version, the original, I think was 91. And I do have to wonder if Nintendo saw that game and was like, let's make that, but on the Game Boy. Now, there are some notable differences between this and Micro Machines. Firstly, it is all boat racing. It's not like, you know, here's... You know, ooh, we got the boat races, but now you've got the Formula 1 cars racing on a snooker table. You've got, like, you got sports cars racing on a desk. And, you know, that sort of thing. This one is just more normal. You're just racing normal-sized boats. And, as you can tell, if you've ever played Micro Machines, this game is a lot slower than that game. Which, honestly, I think is a good thing. Micro Machines, I've always found to be too fast. Where you essentially have to know the track layouts in advance. There's no in-game map for that game. It doesn't show you what the map looks like before you start. You just have to memorize the course. And you have to keep playing the game over and over again to memorize the courses enough that you can beat the later levels. You can get by on the early levels, but you get to later ones, the AI gives you no quarter. But as I say, I mean, this game is certainly more forgiving in that sense. Like, you know, the fact that it actually gives you an in-game map helps. Yeah, I do know the CDI version is slower. I haven't actually played the CDI version of Micro Machines. Maybe that game can be more palatable in a way. I do know it's got some nice production music during the gameplay. But as I say, again, very akin to Micro Machines. And I think there was a Game Boy Color version of Micro Machines. I don't remember if it was on the original Game Boy or not. I do know there was a Game Gear version, which I seem to recall wasn't especially playable, because again, it is kind of just like playing the, you know, the console versions with a smaller screen resolution. So yeah, it's like good luck trying to play that version. Not that it's bad. It's basically the Master System version, but on a Game Gear. And the Master System version of that game is quite good, to be fair. But as I say, Wave Race, again, the Nintendo 64 version is far better remembered. I mean, that's kind of the game that everyone seems to think of when it comes to Wave Race. Also, yeah, I think the A button is like the turbo button. And you kind of have to rely on that for... Like, if you don't get ahead right away... So yeah, you really do need the turbo in this. I think when I first went back to this, I'd forgotten that the turbo even was a mechanic in the game. And because of that, I kind of struggled with this one quite a bit. Ugh. Nope, and the game decided to put me last, even though I was clearly tied with the third place. Oh no, okay, it did actually say third. Okay, never mind. An Aladdin deck enhancer. Did the Aladdin deck enhancer actually enhance anything? I don't think it did. There we go, 7 points. Well, at least gave me 2. Yeah, but that's the important thing about this game. You gotta remember, you got that turbo boost. So here we go. I don't remember if the AI uses turbo much, but yeah, you definitely want to be using that quite a bit. I will try to show off the slalom mode in this as well. Yeah, so definitely you get sections like that, you just want to use the turbo boost for it. Or especially on long straightaways. If you use it when you come up to a turn, you seem to lose control during the turn, I find. So yeah, it's a case of just memorizing... Well, not even memorizing, just paying attention to the map. Again, this game is in some ways friendlier than Micro Machines. It is certainly a challenge, because again, the AI is reasonably fast. Like, you gotta work hard to keep up with them. But yeah, I mean the challenge is really more just an execution of the turns than anything else. Oh, okay, that doesn't help. Also, yeah, I think if you go the wrong side of one of these checkpoint things, you have to go back and do it the right way. Ugh. So here we are on Corsica, apparently. Oh, forgot about the chicane! Okay, here we go. Yeah, Half-Baked Game was cool, but I don't think he's really done much recently, in terms of like making videos or anything. But I do like his videos. Very informative if you want to know more about what games the CDI has to offer, or just whatever other stuff he feels like doing. But here we go. Also, I like that. Okay, well, let's finish this season. And as I say, I'll show off what the slalom mode looks like. See what that's... Lap time by KFC! Yeah, apparently Colonel Sanders got heavily involved with this. Also, yeah, you do have to build up the turbo meter. Like, you notice it starts off empty, and you kind of build it up over the course of the race. I think that might be where the AI tends to get faster on the later laps. I think it is just because they just don't have turbo to begin with, and then they gain turbo. Yeah, like this track, you see, has a lot of hairpin turns. So this is where they kind of put you up to the test a little bit. Also note the speed boost that you get. Ooh. And sound is pretty good too. And I do like the graphic design. They do a really good job at sort of pointing you to where, you know, the track actually goes. Where, like, the dark water is where you want to be heading on. So, you know, certainly that could have been done really badly. But they, again, they do a good job on it. Though the game is... It's struggling to keep up with where I am position-wise. Like, you notice the number keeps changing. Like, it said I was first there for, like, half a second. Even though the dude who's in first is way ahead of me, but whatever. Oh, and now the dude just got the power. I forgot this game even has power-ups, I've got to be honest. But yeah, sections like this, where you get like a fuck ton of like hairpin turns at the end of the race. Yeah, these end up just being the hardest tracks by default. You need a long straightaway to be able to catch up with the AI. And if the game doesn't give you that, then you're in trouble. So I find that with like this set of courses, you basically have to do really well in the first races. Because, yeah, good luck trying to do good luck trying to win the fourth race. It's nearly impossible. But, we'll have a quick look on the slalom. Not going to try again, because I don't care. Thankfully, the game is at least somewhat more forgiving than a piece of shit like F1 race, where you have to win every single race. Not to mention, this game also looks like an actual game, and not just something that the Supervision spat out in, like, 30 minutes. like 30 minutes of dev time. But yeah, so we'll quickly just take a very quick look at the slalom mode. And no, this is not like slalom in whatever it's called. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I barely bothered with this mode at all. It's one of those where it's just kind of like, yep, this mode sure exists. Yeah. This is one of those modes I'm just like, yep, this mode exists, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And I didn't care to learn it. Like you give me, like, slalom in, like, a, I don't know, like a skiing game, I don't know what to do. This, I ain't got a fucking clue. Like, it doesn't even really point you to where you're supposed to go. So, yeah, like I say, the map in the race mode is far more helpful. In this one, like, you don't know which way you're supposed to go. You kind of just have to wing it and, like, pray for the best. So it's like here, like, I gotta approach from kind of a diagonal and hope that I go the right way. But yeah, there we go. First! I guess with this mode, if you really wanted to, you could actually just focus on the checkpoints that AI isn't going for. But good luck trying to figure that out on the fly. Yeah, like who even got that one? I can't tell. Anyway. Yeah, there's not really a whole lot more to show off with that. I think there is some weird dithering effect going on with the heads-up display. I think just so you can see more of the track, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if it really helps that much, but it's nice that they made the effort. I don't know. I mean, Wave Race... Again, you compare it to something like F1 Race. You know, one of Nintendo's previous attempts at a racing game. Like, Famicom F1 Race is a classic. The Game Boy game is an insult to both my intelligence and to that original F1 Race game. But this game is a lot better than that. You know, it's certainly... You know, I mean, that game's in the bottom 10. I mean, but what about, like, other racing games on this list? Let's work our way up a little bit here. Like Street Rider, which isn't really a racing game, but that game is certainly slower than this. It certainly feels a lot slower. Kind of laborious, kind of just a poor man's Rally X. I wouldn't really put this... Yeah, like, I mean, I would take this over Street Rider. You know, it's certainly a better game than that. It's better than Crane Shin-Chan 4, because that game is too short and easy. It's just not very interesting. It's definitely better than that jank Street Fighter 2 port. It's better than Yakuman. Because Yakuman, you really need a second player to make that one really work, I would say. It's better than Street Heroes. It is better than R-Type. But in terms of racing games, I guess there just aren't that many racing games on this list. I think many of them are near the bottom. Games like F1 Race and Monster Truck or whatever. Just games that aren't very good. And that I would not wish on my worst enemy. I'm just trying to think where this belongs on the list. I would take this over Boxel. V-Rally, yeah, this is no V-Rally. I'm going to tell you that straight away. This is not going above V-Rally. But, yeah, it's better than Boxel. It's better than Puzznick. It's not better than Asteroids. And it's also not better than Mickey Mouse 2. It's better than Q-Billion, though. Q-Billion is a bit confusing graphically. And probably could have done with a bit more work in that department. Yeah, it's just not quite easy enough to read, where Rave Race kind of succeeds in that aspect. Can be a bit frustrating at times in terms of just how it plays, but yeah, I'd take this over Q-Billion. It's our new number 75. But what about the fourth game of today? Well, let me just have a look through the stacks of games I've got. You know what? Let's play the first of 2 Game Boy Color games. I briefly looked at this one before, but I didn't actually rank it at the time. It is the color version of Dropzone. We've seen the monochrome version, but how does the color version fare? So here we go. Dropzone by the dearly departed Archer McLean. It's funny, actually. I've been going back and watching the first series of Games Master. And I was reminded of that time when Archer McLean destroyed that one kid at Jimmy White's Whirlwind Snooker. So, yes, we can select the colour scheme. Well, obviously we're going to go for the black background since the game takes place in space. It just kind of stands to reason. But here we go. Archer McLean presents to us Dropzone. Published by Acclaim, the rare instance that it's not them publishing a shitty licensed game that they were known for publishing so many of back in the day. But yes, Dropzone for the Game Boy Color. All your favourites like Man and the Nemesis. What's the high score? Presentation-wise, I want to say this is very similar to the Commodore 64 and the NES versions, because yes, there was a NES version of this game. Actually tells you how to play it. You can change colours by pressing select if you want to do it that way. So you don't have to keep restarting the game to change colours if you want to. Yeah, so this game was on the NES, but was only released in Europe, one of the handful of Europe-exclusive NES games. But anyway, let's actually start this one up. And yeah, you might think looks somewhat familiar. So you may have played a little game in the past called Defender. And yeah, I mean, Dropzone essentially was, well, yeah, basically was an attempt to recreate Defender on the Game Boy, well, not on the Game Boy Color, originally for Commodore 64. And it was a really good game. It was like a real standout title for its time, you know, because it was from, I think, 1984 originally. So it was an early game for the system, was really technically impressive for its time. Also bastard hard, although, to be fair, you know, if it wasn't bastard hard, it wouldn't really be, let's be honest, it wouldn't be true to Defender if it wasn't. I mean, that's kind of what that game is known for. Though I am also kind of playing, like, rubbish right now. But, yeah, I did play the NES version of this recently, just for the sake of being able to compare this version to it. And, yeah, it has to be said, the NES version, really good. A really quality game. I do wonder if maybe they made this version a little bit easier to account for the smaller Game Boy screen, or maybe just quality of life, I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of a game that doesn't tend to get talked about. So this game, like I say, this version I had back in the day, but I remember playing this more, weirdly enough, through Archer, no, what was it? Jimmy White's 2 Cue Ball for the Dreamcast. Because yes, this game was on the Dreamcast. Just put my name in. I mean, this is you know, really a score attack game. So, also look at the cool fonts that we've got going on for this. There we go. Let's see if I can get the high score. Yes, the classic game of 2. So let's see what this looks like with a white background. I don't think we need to see much of this game. You kind of get the idea. It's kind of a Defender-like. So let's see what this looks like with a white background. Interesting, I would say, is the answer to that. Also note, by the way, that sometimes the enemies will try to drop like red things on the playfield that will try to kill the blue ones. So yeah, like Defender, you gotta save the blue ones, except in Defender, you just had to make sure they didn't get killed. In this game, you have to take them to this base. So that's one of the ways it differs. It does have some of its own ideas, like it's got a lot of weird sort of enemy types. Unfortunately, I'm too rubbish at the game to show them off right now. And I think you press the B button to use the bomb. Okay, let me just, yeah, use the B button more. Okay, really should have used that when the other thing was on screen. There is one problem in this game I do have, which is, trying to turn around the right way with the controls. Because if you move fast and then turn, like, to the other side, it's like you will turn facing that way, but sometimes you'll immediately turn back to face the other way when you let go of the D-pad. And that can be a little bit annoying. It's not too bad, but yeah, it can be a problem. Also, yeah, this is definitely not the way to play this game. There's a reason the original game had a black background. I mean, you are in space. Also, yeah, you got these clouds that try to kill you. Yeah, also, you know, the enemy spawns right next to you in a true Defender-like fashion. Well, I've managed to beat the high score, so that's a good start. And I died, which is much less of a good start. Yeah, flying straight into the enemy, it's a great option. It's a great strategy. Also, yeah. Yep, that's the Defender experience right there. Just have the enemy spawn on top of you. Like I say, I was never good at this game. I could get a few levels in on a good day. Or a couple levels further. See what happens if I just type in R. But yeah, not really a whole lot to see about Dropzone. It kind of just is, again. There actually is a Game Boy version of Defender. I seem to recall it wasn't as good, though. Yeah, I think they just included this for, I don't know, just for the sake of being able to see the screen better. But obviously, if you're playing this on the Game Boy player, you're just going to go for the black background. And you're probably going to go for that anyway. But yeah, Dropzone, the colour version, where does it go on this list? Because we have the monochrome version on here already, since that is a very common multi-cart game. Like, it shows up on multi-carts all the time. You never see the colour version of multi-carts, which is a shame, because it's the better version. So, yeah, presumably it's a larger ROM, which is why they don't include it. But yeah, Dropzone, well, the Game Boy Color version is obviously better than the monochrome version, you know. It would be kind of weird if it wasn't. I think it was made by Archie McLean, it plays at least as well. It's a lot easier to see what's going on, so you don't have the issues with the original, where sometimes, you know, enemies or bullets or whatever can blend into the background a little bit. So it's not just a case of it being better aesthetically, it is also just better in terms of being able to see what's going on. So this is absolutely an improvement over that. And as I say, I mean, Dropzone, Defender, whatever, classic. And I think I've always preferred the controls in this to Defender. Because Defender, you play the arcade game, it's designed to kill you as soon as possible. And part of that is just for having just controls that are designed to melt your brain. And I just prefer just being able to move around easily with the D-pad. Hello, Ian, how you doing? But as I say, yeah, Dropzone definitely goes higher on the list than the monochrome version. It's better than Metroid 2. I mean, the controls aren't perfect, but they don't frustrate me nearly as much as they do with that game. It's better than Motocross Maniacs. It's better than Boxing. But is it better than Cat Trap? Because Cat Trap does have a cat boy and a cat girl in it. It's got some interesting puzzles. It's a fun time. But it's not a game I've really found myself playing through in full. But I don't know. I mean, I would probably be more interested to play through that game in full. Dropzone is a game that you play maybe a few rounds of, try to get a little further in it. See if you can find more enemy types, whatever, in play. It's not better than Cat Trap. It is better than original Dropzone, but it's not that much better that I'll put it as like a top 20 game or anything. I'd say it's our new number 26. The color version of Dropzone, good stuff. But not necessarily one of the best ever. But, okay. So, I've got a few more games here. Let's see what we've got. Okay, well I think we got to see this one. This is one that I've alluded to very slightly, very subtly. Probably didn't know that I had this one. But let's take a look at it. It is Double Dragon for the Game Boy, because we haven't seen any Double Dragon games yet. And I thought, you know, we've got to at least see the first one. If it will work. I do have to manually set the colours for this one, since I don't think Nintendo published it. I don't remember who published this one. This may have been Trade West. What's a good colour scheme for this? Let's go for this one, because I'm not going to get to use it again. And it's not even bothering to load, because the game is being an arse. I swear I cleaned all these cartridges yesterday. This one's just being a dick. But okay, let's go for this. Nope. There's always at least one cartridge that just decides it doesn't want to work. No, you're going to have to hold on for the next half an hour. Yes, call it the tried and true method. Here we go. Okay, I guess this cart has decided it doesn't want to work. It has decided it has gotten stage fright or something. Okay, let me just rub this together, see if that helps at all. Hold on, I'm doing the wrong side. This is the wrong side. Oops, wrong side. Okay, let me see if this works. Nope, evidently it does not, because this game cannot be arsed. No, apparently we're going to have to leave Double Dragon because it doesn't work. But I refuse to give up. God, this is like that one, like, 17-in-1 cartridge that just doesn't work. Oh no, 21-in-1. Okay. Also, only in USA and Canada, oops. Which is weird, because it is a UK cartridge, so I don't know what's going on there. But hey, we got the Double Dragon themes, that's a good start. Bimmy cannot be stopped. Even after I force him onto the stage. Yeah, I'm just going to enjoy this theme for a bit. Go get the BJ theme. As a classic game room once called it. But yeah, it is amusing to me they didn't bother to edit the ROM at all from the American version of this. So it's like, yeah, this version's for North America only, even though this is the UK version. So here we go. Mode A, Mode B. I'm not actually sure what Mode B is. Like, is Mode B like that weird one-on-one fighting mode from the NES version? Because, yeah, you look at this game, it is clearly built on the NES version. You know, like, same sprite work and everything. And, thankfully, yeah, it does bring back the control scheme of the NES game, where you're not having to, like, awkwardly... You're not having to, like, awkwardly press B to attack left, like in Double Dragon 2 or anything. Yeah, so I'm going to say for the record, and I'm just going to say straight up, I've only ever gotten to level 2 in this version. I never got any further than that. It's as far as I could get as a kid, and nowadays I'm not even sure if I can get that far. But as I say, I have gotten to the second level on this before. From what I've seen from like YouTube comments and whatever, like most people it seems couldn't get past the third level. Or, you know, even earlier levels than that. As I say, I never got past level 2. And, yeah, like, I've gotten further in the NES version than this. Hold on. Yeah, so I think, yeah, if you just press the A button, it does the elbow drop, if you're facing away from the enemy. Anyone who's played the arcade version, and possibly even the NES one, knows that the elbow drop is an invaluable asset. So, the NES version of this was weird, because you had to earn half of the moves, or, like, probably even the majority of the moves, by accumulating a certain number of points. Like, basically, when you get a certain number of points, I think every 5,000 points you get, it shows a heart on the bottom of the screen, and that signifies that you, like, gained an additional move. But also, yeah, I don't know how you meant to dodge that. Because basically, when the AI throws it, you've already gotten hit by it, basically. Yeah, we'll at least do that. I will say this, the combat, I want to say, is a little bit better than it is in the NES one. It felt like in the NES version, no matter what you do, the AI is always going to get its hits in. Like, no matter how you play it, no matter how good you are at the combat, you always get hit. This game, it feels like it improves on that. Though, certainly if you get cornered, you're in trouble. But also, I don't know if you could do the spin jump in this. I get it to work on the NES, but in this game, he always does the jump kick. Which is a bit odd. I must admit, I could never beat the NES version of this either. I've played further into the arcade game, I think. I can't remember if the arcade game limits the continues, but I do know I was playing on a real cabinet, and I think I just ran out of credits. But that game especially, you really want the... There we go. Hold on, can I... Oh, don't fall in the pit! Okay. Hold on. I seem to recall the trick of this was you want to lead a Bobo... Oh no, that's right. You can't lead a Bobo into the pit because he's on the screen! And I don't remember what the trick is. Hold on, yeah. I was thinking, is it the elbow drop? No, it is not. The elbow drop does not work on this dude. Yeah. There's a trick to beating this. I don't remember what it is. Is it just kicks? But, yeah, like, you see how, like, hard this is. In the NES version, you could easily beat him by just leading him down, like, the pit. The problem with this version is that they got rid of the pit. So they were just like, yeah, we're just going to make this 10 times harder by making it so that you can't do it the easy way. And, yeah, for the record, I don't think I've ever done this boss fight the hard way. Certainly not on the NES version. Like, maybe there's some sort of, like, specific move that he's weak to, but I don't know what it is. And from what I've seen from, like, on YouTube, it seems like you just have to get looking. As I say, I got to level 2 as a kid playing this, and honestly, I haven't got a clue how I even got that far. Honestly, if you can get to level 2 on this game, like, that's actually kind of an achievement, because, like, holy shit, this version is hard. And I've played this more recently, and again, like, playing this, like, as an adult, I can't even get to level 2. Like, this boss is a brick wall. And I know I'm not alone on that. From, like, seeing YouTube comments and even just in this stream chat, like, it is basically common that, yeah, like, the first boss is just stupidly hard. So, as I say, I mean, even getting this far is kind of an achievement in this version. Again, the NES version, the first boss is a lot easier, because, again, you can just, like, knock him once into the pit. And I seem to recall he was less aggressive there as well. But, again, this is as far as I could get. You know. Also, yeah, you just get kind of nonsense like this, where it's like, oh, we're not going to tell you that there's an enemy that's going to come out here. You just have to know in advance. Just stuff like this, they just feels needlessly cheap, and just kind of unfair. You know, like, why not just have the enemy come out as soon as I beat the other enemy? Again, I don't seem to recall that being the problem of other versions. It's kind of funny, I was talking about R-Type getting the long end of the stick when it came to home versions. Double Dragon definitely got the short end. Like, most of the home versions of Double Dragon are really bad. Like, honestly, I'd say the NES version is, like, the only version that I would maybe recommend playing. Just because it makes so many changes from the arcade version that it kind of works as its own thing. It's not as good as the arcade game, I certainly don't think the combat is nearly as good. But certainly I would recommend that one if you want a different take on Double Dragon. This is kind of like they took the NES version and basically tried to make it. Tried to remake that one, but I don't know. The basic combat is generally a little bit better, but it's also just stupidly hard. But again, I would still say this is better than most other versions of the game. Because it feels solid enough. In fact, in a way, it feels kind of more solid than the first couple of NES games do. Certainly the first one. The NES version had this kind of jank to it, in a way that this game has, maybe to a lesser extent. Like, this feels a little more solidly built. I think just because this was 1990, this was like 2 years after the NES version. But like I say, the other home versions are really bad. Like, the computer versions were all terrible, I want to say. Certainly the 8-bit ones. Maybe, like, the Amiga version is secretly good, and I just didn't look into it. But yeah, like, the Atari versions are really bad. Like, the 2600 version is really impressive that they could do it, but you wouldn't want to actually play it for fun. Like, that's a game that you play more as a historical curio than anything. It's like, wow, they actually did Double Dragon on Atari? You play it and it's awful, but at least... But you're also like, well, the fact that it could do it at all is honestly kind of impressive, in a way. Because, like, the Atari 2600 should not be able to do a game like this. Also, yeah, I don't think climbing down the ladder works in this version. I don't think you can do that here. But yeah, I want to say this is the trick to this boss. You just keep jump kicking him and just hoping for the best. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you have to do like the elbow drop or something. But yeah, the thing is, no matter what you do, sometimes the bosses especially are going to get their hits in. Oh, holy shit, I actually got an extra life. I can't believe it. I actually beat level 2, I can't believe it. I actually beat the second level of Double Dragon on Game Boy. Something that I have never done in my life, but I finally did it. But, yeah, so the Atari 7800 version of this is pretty much just the 2600 version with better graphics, but the gameplay is every bit as bad as the 2600 one, except it has a couple extra features, like gameplay-wise. But, yeah, that one is shockingly awful. Because I think it was done by Imagineering, and it is every bit as bad as you would expect an Imagineering conversion of Double Dragon to be. Like, it is horrendous. But, I mean, the Master System one, I guess, is okay-ish. It's not as bad as some of the other ones, I'll say that. Also, yeah, for some reason, if you fall in the water in this game, it's instant death. I never understood why. Like, Double Dragon 2, I'm pretty sure if you go in the water, you can just easily get back out. And it's one thing about this game I never got. But, yeah, as I say, level 3 is as far as most people could ever get into this. Like, trying to beat all 4 levels, yeah, good luck. I mean, it's hard enough on the NES, or even the arcade. If you don't have, like, infinite credits, at least. But, yeah, as I say, Imagineering, again, Atari version, 2600 version, impressive. 7800 version is just bad. Like, it's not even impressive, it's just bad. Yeah, that's about as good as it gets. And, like, even, like, the Mega Drive version just wasn't very good. It was unlicensed, so maybe that partly explains it. But also, yeah, this game doesn't have continues because fuck you for wanting to continue in this. I know that the same is true of the NES version, but still. But yeah, Double Dragon on Game Boy. Where does this game go on the list? Because I'm not trying again. I think you saw everything you needed to see. And to be fair, again, most people are not going to get much further than that anyway. So, where does Double Dragon go on here? Well, let's think about Kung Fu Master. Where does Kung Fu Master... How is that in relation to this? Double Dragon is definitely a more sophisticated game, you know, it combines platforming and action. But I gotta be honest, I always thought the platforming in the Double Dragon games was terrible, and they just probably shouldn't have bothered. Though granted, it's a lot worse in something like Double Dragon 2 on the NES, where they made more of an emphasis on platforming action, and none of it worked. Some of it was actively terrible, and really drags that game down. It's not as bad in this game, I would say. I mean, dying to water is stupid, but I don't know. Double Dragon on Game Boy isn't bad, but it is bastard hard. Because, as I say, most of the versions of Double Dragon 1 are really bad. This isn't one of them. This is one of the best versions, weirdly enough. Because at least it feels solid enough from a gameplay perspective. The bosses are cheap, but you can beat them with perseverance. Or persistence, or if you can figure out what their weakness is supposed to be. It's possible. Like, Kung Fu Master just makes me wish I was playing a better version of Kung Fu, like the original game. It makes me wish I was playing the NES game, or Spartan X2, or maybe even Vigilante. And I guess Double Dragon on Game Boy kind of makes me wish I was playing the NES version at times, but to a lesser extent. So I'd say this is better than Kung Fu Master. It's definitely better than Heian-Kyo Alien. It's better than Alleyway. Actually, is it better than Alleyway? Alleyway is kind of its own... Well, no, because Alleyway is kind of just Breakout. I guess with better physics, but still, it's just Breakout. And you played in the context of Game Boy, and there are certainly better takes on that style of game that came out later for that same system. You know, it's no Super Breakout in relation to other games on its platform. Though granted, the Game Boy version of Super Breakout wasn't very good, from what I remember. But there we are. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's definitely not better than Street Heroes. Like, Street Heroes may not be a prestige name, but that game is surprisingly better than you would expect from a gameplay standpoint. I mean, the audio is bad, but the graphics are okay. Gameplay is surprisingly okay. The controls are decent. You know, you think about how antiquated and arcane Double Dragon's combat is, and even just the gameplay in general in places. In a way, like, Street Heroes, I think, holds up better. Like, it pains me to say it, but I would probably take Street Heroes over this. Maybe if we were talking the NES Double Dragon, it would be a different story, but yeah, it's not a top 100 game. I think when you put this up against other games, it's not better than Yakuman. I mean, Street Fighter 2 on the Game Boy really suffers from just a low frame rate, which is not what you want for a fighting game. It's just not a very good version of Street Fighter 2. It's not as bad as you would expect, certainly watching it, but it could be far better than it is. Double Dragon, a lot of it is limited by just the game it's based on. It's better than Street Fighter 2, but it's not as good as Yakuman. It's our new number 103. Not quite a top 100 game, but certainly not bad. You know, you could do a lot worse. But we've got a few more games to look at. So let's... You know, I'm just going to get this one out of the way, because this is a case of really who cares. If I can open the case. Ugh. Ugh. This one doesn't want to open, even though it opened just... Okay, here we go. Next up, we have Golf. Because we had to have Golf on Game Boy. I mean, it'd be weird if we didn't have a Golf game on Game Boy, let's be honest. So here we go. Golf from 1989 from Nintendo. So this is a very early game. This was a launch era, pretty much. You know, we've looked at tennis. We got to look at golf. So, okay, what even are these names? You know, I've forgotten that I even had names on this. So we have, you know, the legend K and Ham plus minus. Okay, I don't know. Okay, we're just going to start a new game. I don't really care at this point. Name registration. We'll just go for number 2. And we're going to go for... Yeah, that's the name. Okay, we've got Japan 18 and USA 18 with a very funny looking Mario there. Yeah, this is when they... Well, this is not when they started adding Mario to these golf games. I think they were doing that as far back as the Famicom Disk System. Also, yeah, Sonic 4, how are you doing? We're playing some golf on the Game Boy. And as you can see, so if we press select, you get the option to save the game. Press start, it tells you, yeah, just the scorecard, basically. So B shows you the map, which is quite good. So I think the white area is water. No, the area with a flashing W on it is the water, never mind. No, the white area is the fairway. It's hard to tell just because of the colour scheme they're having to use. Oh, Portal 1, now that is an all-timer. Portal 1, if you asked me to list my top 10 favourite games of all time, I think Portal 1 would have a very strong shot of being up there. It is one of the best games ever made. As short as it might be, that's just peak FPS gaming. FPS puzzle, you know. But here we go. So, the down in the 1, that's basically saying, you know, white wind blowing against me. Or blowing down, basically. So, 384 yards. Now, there is one big problem that I have with this game that I'm going to point out right away, which is the complete lack of any kind of in-game indication as to how far the clubs hit the ball. This is one of those games where you have to guess how far each club hits the ball. So like this. So we're going to try to hit it. I didn't quite get full strength because I think it's just a case that there is a bit of lag on the screen, which does make games like this much harder to play, for me at least. So 255 yards, we'll just do this. Yeah. So again, the fact that I'm pressing the buttons a bit late, again, that is a fault of the capture setup that I've got. That's not a fault of the game. But yeah, 146 yards. So I look at this and I go, well, okay, if I hit 146, okay, well, what club am I supposed to use for that? Like, this is the problem with a lot of these earlier golf games. They don't give you quite enough information on what you need to do to hit the ball. Like, even Great Golf on the Master System, like, when you start the game up, like, right before you go into the hole, it tells you how far each club hits the ball, if you hit it at max strength. Here, you're just left to guess. And Great Golf was 1987, this was 1989. Like, really, there's no excuse by this point. But I think a 6-iron is probably going to hit about 145 yards. Let's try that out. Okay, so this time I got it straight ahead. And of course it lands straight in the bunker. So, of course, now it tells me that the club hits 128 yards. But of course it didn't tell me that earlier. But it's like, well, how am I supposed to know that the first time? This is the problem with a lot of these early golf games. Again, they don't give you enough information. You know, like, that was an absolute problem with, like, the original Golf on the NES. I think the Famicom Disk System games have the same problem. They didn't really fix this problem until, like, NES Open on the NES, obviously. But that game was out a couple of years after this. But, like, you compare this game to that, and you're like, okay, that game absolutely holds up better than this. So there's no wind, which is good. But, you know, you think about how this game compares to something like that. Okay, so I accidentally hit the ball a bit too far. Again, I wouldn't know that the first time because I don't know how far the clubs hit the ball. Yeah, also the trees are a dick, but that's true of, like, any golf game ever made. Unless you're playing on a desert course, maybe. I don't know. I mean, the actual movement of the ball and everything, like, works as you would expect. But again, like, how far... Okay, here's a problem. Like, how far is the putting wedge going to hit the ball? How on earth would I know that if I didn't have the manual? And for the record, most of these games, when I got them back in the day, at least the ones I'm looking at today, I didn't have the box or the manual or anything that they came with. Like, my parents got them without the packaging. So it's kind of a case of, I don't have that information. I don't know how far the ball's going to hit. It's just a case of just random guessing, which is never a good thing. But here we go. Of course, it's off by like an inch, because again, I don't know. Like, later golf games, they would fix this problem by basically having indicators that tell you, okay, this is how far you need to hit to go 100 yards. This is how far you need to hit to go 200 yards with this club. Like that sort of thing. So again, 162 yards, wind blowing against me. Which club am I supposed to use? Well, I want a club that can probably hit about 170 yards. But which club hits 170 yards? This probably hits over 200. This probably hits just under 200. This probably hits, I don't know, 180. And this probably hits 170. Okay, let's try the 5... Well, no, because I tried, like, the 7-iron before, and it hit barely anywhere. So we'll try the 4-iron, go max power. And, of course, hit it off slightly to the side, because, of course, I'm going to miss. Again, the lag is not going to help. But, again, I think this is one of those games, like, one of those kind of early golf games where you're like... I mean, they're close, design-wise, but they're not quite there yet. But, I mean, even then, I mean, there were games prior to this that did it better. Like, again, there were definitely golf games that came out after this. There were quite a few on Game Boy. Admittedly, I haven't played any of those games. So, okay, I'm going to use, let's say, the free iron here, because, I mean, there's no reason to use a wood. Because there's no reason to hit this at, like, full power, because if I do, it's going to land in the water. Like, you see there, yeah, free iron, probably the right choice, or maybe the 4 wood. Portal 2 is also quite good. It is I want to say somewhat longer than the original, so be prepared for that. So we'll try the 1 wood. Now, you see the margin of error to hit the ball. Yeah, like, you'll notice there's not much incentive to pick a lower distance club. Like, you play something like, I don't know, Major Title on the SNES, and it's far more obvious how much margin of error you get with each club, depending on what type of ground the ball is in. Again, you don't really get that with this game. And I don't think it's possible to... Here's another problem. I don't think you can put spin on the ball. You can't choose where to hit the ball. Like, which spot to hit the ball. Which, again, most golf games around this time were doing that. Like, this is kind of just missing, like, basic features that other golf games had by this point. Again, Great Golf had 1 or 2 things that this game doesn't, and again, that game predates this one. And you also got things like that, like, looks like it's in the fairway. I don't care what the game says, that's in the fairway. It just is. But yeah, okay, wind blowing a bit down to the left. And I think I overshot it just about, but that seemed to be the best club I could have used. Okay. I mean, the game doesn't automatically select the best club, although maybe you'd probably expect that anyway. And bounce. I forgot the ball could do that. Yeah, it's got a weird sort of perspective thing, like. So let's just go tons of power. Hooray! We did it. There we go. So, I mean, generally the game plays fine, but this is probably a game where you may want to have the manual with you when you play it. Again, I struggled with this game a fair bit, mainly because I just didn't have I didn't have a manual with it. Like, again, when my parents got this and a bunch of the other games, there was no manual. But here we go. The Super Shot! Which I think goes a bit further than a regular shot. But okay, we'll take a look at the distance. So that hit 259. So 196, I probably want the 1 wood for this to try to avoid the bunker. Let's go near max power. Okay, that should be okay. Let's see. Yep, that's pretty good to me. But is it going to be on the green? Just about. So I think... Yeah, so I think those arrows point... I think they're pointing down to the left a little bit. But it's hard to tell, like what gradient this is. I know that the big arrows are steep. But I think these might be a bit shallower. Okay, we'll complete this hole, and then I think we'll rank this one. Because honestly, there's not a whole lot to see with this game. You've seen a few holes of this, and you kind of have a good idea. Boom! There we go, a little bit of redemption there. Birdie! Nice old birdie cutscene there. Oh, here's another really short hole. You know, for the hell of it, let's try to get this in 1. Okay, why wouldn't I want to just aim straight for the... Because, I mean, there's no wind. Of course I'm going to just aim straight for the hole. With the free wood... Try to get the hole in 1. Didn't quite work, but I did make it on the green. Gorf. Okay. Oh, yeah, I wish I could choose a free wood, just so I could do the Simpsons joke. You have selected a free wood. May I suggest a putter? 3 wood. Ball is in. Parking lot. Oh, see that for a choice shot there. Yeah. See, I haven't completely lost my skill at this. It took a few holes to get it back, but okay. Anyway, yeah, I think we all know what golf is like. Not a whole lot more to say about it. So, where does golf go on the list? Well, as far as golf games go, it is a solid game, especially for 1989. Again, this was one of the first games on the system. You think about what the Game Boy had to offer at that time. Again, this was... Well, this game was probably released around the same time the Atari Lynx launched. And I don't think the Atari Lynx had a golf game on it. It didn't have that many games, full stop. And I certainly don't think it had golf. And I'm thinking in terms of what this offers. You know, it is definitely a solid golf game. Nintendo made a lot of them, even around this time. You know, they had golf on the NES. They had Versus Golf in arcades. They had, like, Ladies Golf, I think, as well. They had 2 games on the Famicom Disk System by this point. Like, for whatever reason, Nintendo really liked specializing in golf games. And it does show. Like, they were definitely better at some sports than others when it came to making video game versions of them. And golf was one that they really kind of knew their way around. They would certainly improve on this with NES Open, which again was out a couple of years later. And certainly I would not put this on the level of NES Open, but of course that game wasn't on the Game Boy. But this is a very good golf game for its time. Again, it is missing certain features that would definitely elevate it. Again, a game that you would want to play with a manual or a strategy guide, whatever. Or an FAQ that just tells you the distance each club hits the ball. There's room for improvement, but I don't think Nintendo ever released a sequel. There are other golf games that did come out later on, but for 1989, it was certainly one of the better games you could get. There were, I don't know, 25 games on Game Boy, and a lot of them were sort of minor titles from, you know, C-list publishers, like, you know, Kemco or Seta or whoever, like names that weren't really big in the home market at least, or even like Tonkin House, you know. And you think about like, well, what great games were on the Game Boy at this point? You know, you had Tetris, you had Super Mario Land. You know, I mean, the only other like really notable titles that stick out to me from around that time would have been maybe Castlevania: The Adventure, which is not a good game. Final Fantasy Legend, which maybe that's a good game, but it's not one I really find myself interested in playing. And, I don't know, Motocross Maniacs, that's quite a good one. But I can't think of many others. But this is a good game. You know, it's certainly better than Street Heroes. It's better than James Bond 007. It's better than Hyper Load Runner. You know, if we're talking games from 1989, I would take this over Hyper Load Runner. It's better than Wave Race. It's better than the Japanese version of Clax. And better than Muhammad Ali Boxing. It's better than Pinball Revenge of the Gator. It's better than Quirk. You know, again, as far as 1989 games, though, I think I would take this over Quirk. Quirk is a good game for that era. Like, it's definitely, again, one of the better games of that time. I don't think it's better than Yar's Revenge, the Kotile Ultimatum. And I think Amazing Tater does add just enough to elevate itself above something like Golf. It's got more content, and I think a bit more in terms of modes. Golf just has that, I don't know, that kind of element where there were already other games prior to it that were adding features that this game probably should have had but doesn't. And Pokemon Diamond and Jade, I would say, is maybe a more interesting game to look into. Certainly if you want to play the original Telefang, I would probably take this game over Golf. So yeah, I'm going to say it's our new lucky number 52. But hey, 52 over, you know, 200 plus games, I mean, it's what, like... I mean, we're talking, what, the top 25th percentile? Quite good, actually. So well done, Golf, you are quality title. But what about our next game? And I'm starting to get the shakes a bit. which is telling me that I'm going to need to have some dinner soon, but we will take a look at these last 2 games. Because I got 8 on the docket. This is the 7th one. Nintendo World Cup! Oh yes. This is one I've been looking forward to because, yeah, you want to talk about some Technos action. I think this game's a custom color palette. Let's see. Yep, from Technos Japan and Nintendo. Nintendo World Cup! So this is a game that got released on the NES back in the day. And, yeah, they ported it over to Game Boy. Originally was a Kunio game, but they rebadged it for the West. Eventually, the original Kunio game did get brought over as part of the collection, with all the Double Dragon and Kunio games on it. But it didn't have the Game Boy versions of those games, so, you know, you had to go for the Famicom versions. There we go, 1-player, 2-player, and versus, well, it's just going to be me. Also like the use of the American flag on the logo, even though this is the European version, but whatever. So, just like the NES version, you got 13 teams to choose from. Of course, we're going to go for the best country in the world, Italy, because they make the best pasta. Here we go, Italy versus Cameroon. Also because the game is very green. Now, the NES version of this was a bit weird with the players. So the players all have the same stats, except for the American team, because they were essentially the team that replaced the Kunio main team that you played in the original. And you've also got just various rules. So, offensive strategy, pass the ball or use dribble. We'll just go for dribble. Should the teammate shoot? Yes. I think there were more rules in the NES version. But yeah, if you've ever played the NES version, yeah, basically how this works is you got a little bit of strategic options. There we go. The AI isn't too difficult to start off with at first. But basically you play as one player, so as you see here, I'm the man with the cool face. Also, yeah, if you press the A button where the AI has the ball, you can actually just tell them to just steal the ball off the other team. But, you know, you can also pass the ball. So it's 6-a-side football. There we go, we'll let the teammates shoot. Unfortunately, they're not very good at shooting. So I seem to recall you can do super shots by basically shooting a certain way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so here we go. Because I ran... basically, so the super shot changes, or the method to do it, changes based on which team. So if you play as the Italian team, and I think I actually beat the game as Italy. Yeah, basically you take 5 steps and then shoot, and that's how you do the super shot. With other teams it's harder to do, so for instance, I think like the England team, you have to take something like 12 steps, and it's hard to keep track of. There we go, shoot, okay! Also, they'll kick it out of play a lot of the time. Yeah, this is very Super Dodgeball-esque in how it works. I mean, it was made by Techno, so what do you expect? But yeah, it has to be said, like, for a Game Boy game, it's also very smooth, just in terms of how it works. Okay, let's not rely on the super shot too much. So let's see what the defending players do. But yeah, you'll notice that I basically control the same player the whole time, so it's a little different to sort of other games of its type. Also, yeah, sometimes your teammates will just scramble in the box. Okay, I don't know why he's passing. I don't think I told him to do that. There we go. You can get your teammates to score as well. I mean, once you've got this mastered, you can just score like a ton of goals. Also, I do note the fact that the teams are always, like, your team always seems to be white in this. Even if you're not playing as England. Like, it makes sense with the England team, but it's kind of weird when you're playing as, like, you know, Italy. A team that normally plays in blue, but whatever. Kind of a minor thing. Obviously, play the NES version, they have different kit colours. Yeah, there are no health bars in this. I think you can knock the players out. Like, you do it a certain way. Yeah, like there. Like, you notice I knocked that dude out. Because I think he got in the way of my super shot. But I think they do expand on these concepts quite a bit in the sequel. Because there was a sequel to this on the Famicom. Kunio-kun's Soccer League, or whatever it's called. And I definitely remember that being the better game. You know, you want to play Kunio Soccer, like, you know, that's definitely the one to play. Though, having said that, this is still a really good game. Like this. Like, I've played a good handful of mediocre football games in this series, and, you know, part of the reason why I knew that those games were mediocre for Game Boy standards is because I've already played the best. Well, certainly the best one that I'm aware of. You know, you compare this to a game like FIFA 2000 on Game Boy Color, or David Beckham Soccer, or Soccer Boy, or whatever. Like, this was, again, 1991. In fact, the Game Boy, like, the Japanese version may have actually come out earlier. I'm not actually certain on that. But yeah, Kunio-kun... Oh, Niketsu's Soccer League, or whatever. Yeah, as I say, that game did come out later, to be fair. That was 93, this is 91. So you can't really fault this game for not being quite as good as that. Ooh, the Retro Gaming Exhibition. Okay, so, what have they got going on there? Like, you notice just the sheer amount of goals that I'm just racking up. Yeah, I was actually trying to do the seep shot there, it didn't quite work. It does take a bit of practice to nail it. Ugh. I do love the faces whenever you get hit. It's like, ugh! Yeah, just like in River City Ransom. Oh, it's kind of a shame the Game Boy never had River City Ransom. Maybe there was a game like that that only got released in Japan, but yeah, I can't really think of anything else that, yeah, I can't really think of any games like that on the Game Boy. There we go. Half-time. 9-0 to Italy. Oh, you got to meet Gary Kitchen and David Crane. Oh, I'm envious now. Okay, let's see what happens if I change the strategy. But yeah, Pat the NES Punk. Is he still going on about the Amico? Or has he moved on from that? Okay, so I should point out, this is actually not the default Game Boy Color palette. This is actually a custom palette that they use for this game. So, yeah. So, like, certain games, mostly ones that Nintendo published. So it's just me, or did the game get faster? Okay, what's going on? But yeah, as I say, there are certain Game Boy games that do have custom palettes if you play them through Game Boy Player or Game Boy Color. And this is one of them. Ooh. You can still direct them to shoot, though, if you want to. Okay, so he's moved on from that, okay. I was kind of curious, because I've seen him talk about that a lot. Now, I seem to recall, if I remember this correctly, I think on the NES version of this, they actually increased the halve lengths from the Famicom version. The Famicom version, the halve lengths are 4 minutes, but I think when they made the NES version, they extended it to something like 7 minutes, and it makes the game feel like it takes a bit too long. And certainly this version doesn't have that problem. Like, you can play through this game, you know, on an afternoon if you want to, and just be like, yeah, I'm just going to just beat the other 12 teams in an afternoon if I want to. And I have played through this before. It's a really good time. I'll tell you that right now. Oh. Yeah, there we go. Ugh, no! Obviously, the AI does become more difficult as you progress, as you might hope. It does start getting pretty challenging once you get to the last few matches. I think by the time you get to, like, Germany, that's when the game starts really putting up a fight. Oh, I forgot the... Yeah, the special shot only goes straight forwards. Hold on, let me try something out while I'm here. I want to see if this works. Let me run backwards. Actually, I think it might be 6 steps. Yeah, let's see if this works. Yeah! Boom! I'm trying to think, did the different teams have different super shots? I know the method to do them changes, like the number of steps or whatever. Again, Italy's one of the easier teams to do that with, which is kind of why I picked them. But, come on, Italy! Oh, yeah, just scramble it in like 4th division fashion. But okay, we'll finish this match. We'll briefly see what the second match looks like. I think you do actually get several different types of pitches as well. So like this one, you're just on a regular football pitch. Like a lot of them are like this. Then you get something like England, where it's like a dirt pitch. Or like a rainy pitch. I know they do expand on that when it comes to the sequel. Again, like they have more different types of pitches and various weather conditions. Like, you get a mode that has, like, giant, like, just puddles on the pitch. And you gotta be careful to avoid them. And stuff like that is just really fun. Like, it's... I love when the Kunio series expanded into sports. Because these games really... It's kind of like half... Yeah, it really is like half beat-em-up, half sport. Where they've kind of just taken the River City Ransom combat and just adapted it to, like, whatever sport that they wanted to turn it into. Oh, no, you can have it go to diagonal. Okay, never mind. I guess I just didn't do it correctly the first time, but whatever. But yeah, like, this game, and, like, Super Dodgeball, and just, you know, whatever else, like, what is it, like, Street Basket? Like, the basketball one? Just really good games all around. I was never good at the Street Basket one, but, you know. You want basketball on the Famicom, that's a good choice. Even if it just goes bizarre. Also, like, this game, there are no fouls. So you can just, like, foul the other team as much as you want. See if I can get 20 goals. Just for the hell of it. Yeah, try to stop this, Mr. Goalie! 20-0. Oh, I don't think this is going in. Yeah, the game starts off pretty easy, as you can tell, but you can put in a password to go to the harder levels if you want. Okay, the... yeah. Like, I'm not huge on sports games. There are some that I really like, and as I say, this is one of them. But there we go, now we get to go to Japan. So, but like, you notice here, like, the pitch itself is very different. Oh no, I remember, you can do like a bicycle kick, I think. If you tell the teammate to pass, and I think you have to press A and B at the same time? Yeah, the AI still isn't all that difficult at this point. Let me see if I can try to do that. Oh, okay, I didn't want to pass backwards, I wanted to pass forwards. But yeah, I think the AI does get a bit more aggressive. Yeah, so you notice there I'll press, like, I press A and B at the same time. Yeah, like, you look at this. Boom! Nice little bicycle kick there. I think you may need to use those more so when you get to the last couple of matches, but... Anyway. Just pause on that nice little face there. Where does this game go on the list? Well, let's take a look at game number 100. You know, you think about, how does this game compare to something like Centipede? Because I love Centipede, but this is not a great version. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you compare a not great version of Centipede to a really good version of Nintendo World Cup. Again, I think on the NES version they extended the lengths. They extended the match lengths, and I think it makes the game too long. This game, I think, is the right length. You know, like, this is, honestly, the ideal way to play this particular game. Like, that game, or the Famicom version. Again, you want to play this game, nowadays I would probably recommend getting the Kunio collection, and playing the Famicom version on there. Weirdly, it doesn't have the NES version. I assume there was a licensing issue, whether it was with Nintendo or the World Cup license, I don't know, but it was one of those. But you can't play the NES version on there. But again, you really want to be playing the Famicom version anyway. It's got more of a plot, or has a plot. So I definitely recommend that one. But if you want to play a handheld version, this is the one to go for. And this is certainly better than a middling version of Centipede. Yeah, again, I definitely recommend it. I've got the digital version, but still really good. But again, better than Centipede. It's better than Ganso Yanchamaru. It's better than Miner 2049er. It's better than Q-Billion. It's better than Boxel 2. Certainly better than Pinball Revenge of the Gator. It's better than Donkey Kong Land. It's better than the monochrome version of Dropzone. It's also better than the colour version of Dropzone, if I'm being honest. You know, I'd say this is a very top-tier game. Where Metroid 2 is not a top-tier game. This, I would say it is. It's better than Solomon's Club. Oh, we've run out of room. It's better than Battle City, I think. Battle City is good, but it can be a bit slow going to start out with. This one is maybe a bit easy to start out with, but you can enter passcodes to go to the harder matches if you want to. It's better than Bomb Jack. I mean, Super Mario Land is great, but it is jank. I'm going to say it's better than that. It's better than Netto, the King of Fighters 97, just because it doesn't have Geese Howard or Terry Bogard. And I feel that drags that game down quite a bit. Like, if the game had those characters, it would be a serious shot at the top of the list, but it just doesn't. Is it better than Pokemon Generation 1? Because Pokemon Generation 1 is really good. Like, that's a game that nailed a lot of its concepts the first time, but it does have a lot of weird sort of jank to it. Like there are places where it becomes evident that, yes, that you are in fact playing the first attempt at this. There are places where it can certainly stand to be a lot more solidly built than it is. And yeah, just kind of weird bugs and glitches. And stuff like, you know, Psychic type being OP, where it's meant to be bad against Psychic, instead ends up being immune to it. Just weird stuff like that. Nintendo World Cup is definitely a more solid game in that regard. And again, like, there were certainly later versions of Pokemon that kind of improved on the concept. Nintendo World Cup, you could definitely argue that with Kunio Soccer League, which, again, kind of improved on the concept, but maybe not to quite the same extent. I'm going to say this is better than Pokemon Generation 1. Super Mario Land 2, I think both of these games have the issue of difficulty. Nintendo World Cup, I think, maybe starts out a bit too easy. But it does... The challenge increases later on. You can just enter a password to go wherever you want, skip the earlier matches if you want to, and that definitely helps a lot. Super Mario Land 2, you're always going to have that problem where the difficulty is largely static throughout. And it's really only the last level that really changes up the difficulty, and is arguably too hard considering what the rest of the game is like. I think this is better than Super Mario Land 2 for that reason. Is it better than Tetris? Tetris is a great game. But it's got that same problem where later games really iterated on the concept and really improved on it. But it does have that amazing soundtrack. It was a really early game. It was the Game Boy's killer app. Like, this is the game that really sold people on Game Boy. And it did so much right. You know, maybe it doesn't have the hard drop, maybe the movement isn't as smooth as later ones, maybe it doesn't have the shadow. I don't care. Like, some days I just want to play Tetris with those original rules before it all became standardized. Like, this is still a very good take on Tetris. It's got its own charm to it that maybe you don't get with other versions of Tetris that came later. But Nintendo World Cup, I think, is maybe a better two-player game. If you're playing this on handheld. I mean, again, I would say play the NES version. But again, the NES version, they kind of spoiled it by making the halves too long. And Tetris, that's a game that you can just play as much as you want. It's a very replayable game. But Nintendo World Cup, if you can get a second player for that, it's maybe... That's a tough one. I love both of these games. I mean, Tetris is another one that I grew up with as well. I think Tetris has a bit more going on. Honestly, if I have to choose between one of them, I'm probably going to pick Tetris. So I'm going to say it's our new number 8. Nintendo World Cup, a top 10 game. Really good stuff. Excellent, in fact. And so that leaves us with the last game for today. And I'm glad that this is the last game. Not because I haven't enjoyed these games, but because I'm really starting to feel a bit shaky. I need something to eat. But before we finish, we're going to play Super Mario Bros. Deluxe for the Game Boy Color. The only Game Boy exclusive that we're going to be looking at today. There were maybe one or two other Game Boy games that I had back in the day that I played, but I'm not certain if I actually played them back in the day. So I'm going to leave those for now. And we're just going to play some Super Mario Deluxe. So let's see what's going on with this. So I did show off this game briefly on one of the pirate multicards I own, but I didn't cover it back then because I think at that point I was just covering monochrome Game Boy games. Hopefully this remembered my save file, because I did unlock a whole bunch of stuff playing this. But let's see what we got. So yeah, original 1985, versus game, records. What are my records? Oh no, don't... Oh, okay. No, it did save it. I got my nice little name there. Yeah, it's my real name, just in case you were wondering. I have said it before on stream, so it's hardly a secret. And for the record, yes, I did beat this game. But yes, Super Mario Bros. For Game Boy Color. Oh, we got new things to print out. So yes, this game has Game Boy printer support. Unfortunately, I never owned the Game Boy printer, so I never got the chance to do this. But, you know, we got the Mario Award. We got Mario looking slightly spaced out, standing in front of a castle. Let's see, we got the classic ending. We've got a whole bunch of enemies. Got this nice picture of the bullet bell. Like, stuff that you just don't get with original Super Mario Bros. And the toy box. Ooh, here we go. So we got the calendar, which, does this go beyond? Yeah, it goes to $29.99, so, yeah, beat that, Microsoft. Yeah, May 1989. I guess that's when they first worked on the game. We've also got that fortune-telling game. Let's pick the one on the right for the hell of it. We are lucky! Yes, I'm lucky to have been blessed by all of these games. Turns out, most of the games I played back in the day, pretty good. Not all great, necessarily. I mean, Mario and Yoshi is a bit dull. But, yeah, we've also got... I think this is another Game Boy printer feature. Yeah, this is a very Y2K compliant game, but this is basically, we're going to take Super Mario Bros. And take it into the 21st century. So, what's this toad about? Banner. That's all glitching there. Oh, that is a Mario and a half. You know, this game gets points for that. And of course, the classic NES box art. And the intro. Pizza pie, please! Sorry, what? That's just the default text. Okay, we got the Nintendo 64 logo, because this is back when that was still current. Only 4! Ah, I wish I could do more with this. Only for Mario and Yoshi, apparently. And yes, Yoshi is in this game, even though he normally wasn't. Oh, look at this! Oh, I can't just hold the D-pad down there. It's a bit of a disappointment. Everybody do the Mario! Swing your arms from side to side! Come on, let's go! Anyway. I mean, I had to. You know, you can't really blame me for that. Nintendo Entertainment System. And it's really red, because it's got Legend of Zelda on it. Do you want to get N or get out? Because if you ain't down with N64, I ain't down with you. Okay, the Nintendo 64, one of the consoles of all time. I mean, how dare you dismiss Nintendo 64? And there are people who don't like the Nintendo 64, and I'll never understand them. I mean, that console has F-Zero X on it, and therefore is one of the best consoles ever made. And it has Super Mario 64 as a bonus. Ooh, more cool sprites are like this. Yeah, as I say, tragically, I don't have a Game Boy printer, so I can't just print these off. I do like this menu. Unfortunately, you can't go in the hole. But, yeah, if I had a Game Boy printer, it would be cool to use. Yoshi is here! Where is he? In World 5... No, World 7-2, apparently. Oh, good. Anyway. Yeah, I think that's just... Oh, you can find the secret egg and take it to the end of the level. So, challenge... Okay, we'll have a quick look on, yeah, this. So, World 1-1... Oh, hold on. Yeah, I remember this. Let's just go to the first file, just for the hell of it. Go to World 3-4. Yeah, so you wanna see what Super Mario Bros. Looks like on the Game Boy Color, no less. So you'll note that, yeah, audio visuals are pretty much on point. I mean, the audio is slightly different, but I mean, it's closer to the original than, say, your average plug-and-play would be, where they reverse the duty cycles. You know, it's certainly better than that. Like, the bass sound is slightly different, but, you know, not so much different that you're... Oops. So much different that you're likely to notice unless you've played this game a lot. Okay, let's try to finish this level, because, I mean, I've beaten this game on the Game Boy Color. Like, that save file of me finishing this, that is my save file. I did legit. Like, I'm not necessarily good at Super Mario Bros. I'm good enough that I can beat it. Let's say that. Here we'll do this bit. Here we go. Oh, I've got this. Yeah, that's the problem playing this version. The fact that they have to crop the screen makes the game a lot harder in places. Just because you can't really see what's above you sometimes. Where it's like, you know, if this was the NES version, I wouldn't have that problem. Because I could just see what's above me. But, like I say, I mean, this really was my introduction to the original Super Mario Bros. I did have Super Mario All-Stars on the SNES for a while. I don't think I really played Mario 1 much on there, though. I remember mostly just playing Mario 2, to be honest. I mean, you can scroll the screen, so, I mean, that does help somewhat, but... Oh. Yeah, the fact that I can't see the walls above me always throws me off. Again, not a problem on the NES version, it's just something I struggle with on this one. Doesn't make the game unplayable. As I say, having beaten this game, I can confirm it is entirely doable. Okay, I'm gonna beat this level. It's bothering me now that I haven't beaten this level yet. Also, if you can do this, you can just save whenever you want. Oh yes, so this kind of was the original Super Mario Advance, but obviously this being on Game Boy Color, not quite the same, because this is a far more just straightforward remake, or just straightforward port of the original. They added a whole bunch of extra features in the menus, you got a whole bunch of extra stuff. You do have some quality of life improvements. You've also got stuff like that, where Toad is animated when you get to the end of the level, which wasn't the case in the original. And you've also got this world map, which again, was not in the original game. You know, the original game, if you die... Well, firstly, there's no map screen. You can't choose the level, you just do them in order. But again, you have stuff like this, where you can see Lacto. But you can't see the spinies being dropped that well. Like, you have less time to react. Especially if you're near the top of the screen. Like there. Again, on the NES you would have a fair bit more time to react to that. Like, you can adjust the camera, but on levels like this, it only helps so much. Because the LAC 2 is at the top of the screen, and you're frequently basically at the bottom. So like this, like, because I'm at the bottom of the screen, I can't really do much with the camera. So, you know, it's like, yes, I can adjust the camera, but then I can't see where the pits are. Let's have a go. This is Luigi just for the hell of it. Oh yeah, I forgot he controls differently. But yeah, certainly, I mean, this port is way more palatable than something like the, you know, the Super Mario Advance games, where you just get like constant voice clips like every 5 seconds. This is certainly way better than that. Like, I played the first 2 Mario Advance games, and while they play perfectly fine and do have some nice quality of life features added to them, they just suffer from just like unnecessary, just features that were just completely unnecessary and only detract from the game rather than add to it. Like, again, like, having those voice clips is really just more of an annoyance than anything. You just kind of look at it and just go, okay, well, this probably shouldn't have been added. It's just added to, like, tout an extra feature on the box. Or to show, oh yes, the Game Boy Advance can do tons of voice clips. Even though, yeah, let's use it even to the detriment of the game. Thankfully, this game doesn't have that. Again, most of the additions, I mean, whatever changes they made to the main game, it's just like adding extra animations, being able to, you know, play as Luigi, and he plays a little differently, which is a nice addition. You know, it's kind of like adding something that was in the Lost Levels. And speaking of which, let's quickly look at the Lost Levels. So we'll go to End. Actually, let's take a look at the challenge mode first. So if we go on just World 1. So here we go. Great. Miss. Yep, that just about sums that up. But yeah, this is also what that Yoshi thing was all about. And like I say, I have beaten this game before. You know, like you saw on the save file that I beat it. Also, you notice like the 5 red coins, a bit like the dragon coins in Mario World. Also, for the record, I am feeling a bit shaky right now, so if my gameplay is worse than usual, I'm just going to blame it on that, because I need my dinner! I need it soon. But I do want to show off this game a little bit before I call it quits. Okay. That's a challenge mode. You know, let's actually try to do the Yoshi mode just for the hell of it. Your results. Yeah, I miss. I know. But, you know, like, basically, you know, where you get features in the later entries like Mario Advance where the features, some of them just feel intrusive and just detract from the game. All the features here, they kind of just add additional content mostly. Okay, I'm not doing World 8-2. I'm just going to get killed over and over on that. I'm going to do a level that's maybe just slightly easier. Let's do World 3-1. See if I can do this challenge, because, you know, I haven't actually done this one yet anyway. So I think you have to hit one of the bricks to get Yoshi. Is that right? Also, yeah, for the record, again, like I said with the golf game, there is a bit of lag. Not much, but enough they can mess me up when I've got to do something like, you know, just the right place. Oh yeah, I forgot this is the level. There's the bloody Hammer Brothers on it. Also, yeah, just like the original, the screen doesn't really scroll back left, at least not very far. Ugh! I always messed that up. Can never get it right the first time. Anyway, let's have a quick look on what on one of this. Yeah, so you notice this one, because I beat the first game, I can do the level select. Oh no, that's right. Yeah, so this is actually just the hard mode, isn't it? So I can't believe I did that twice. Right. But yeah, basically you have to beat World 8-4, then you go to the hard mode. But there is Mario for super players. I guess if you beat this mode, you get that. I never really bothered with it, but as evidenced by the fact that I never unlocked it. So I forgot these things are faster than the Goombas. Those messes me up. God. Here we go. Unfortunately, the fireballs aren't really going to help much in this mode, but whatever. Oh, 300,000 points. Okay, yeah, I think with this game, when I played it as a kid, I kept dying all the time, unsurprisingly. So I never got anywhere near that amount of points. Yeah, I just kept continuing over and over until I... Well, as a kid, I think I only ever got to World 8-3, and I could never beat it. As an adult, I went back and like finally finished it, because I was like, I want to close this chapter on my life a little bit. I'm sure I've done You versus Boo before. I definitely remember that, like, playing that mode. But anyway, Super Mario... I'm feeling really shaky now, so I'm probably going to have to shut the game off in a bit. But, where does Super Mario Bros. Deluxe go? It's a very good port of Super Mario Bros. I mean, Super Mario Bros. 1 is one of the best games on the NES, I think. I think it does hold up as one of the all-time best games on that system. More so than the sequels, I would say. And a lot of people will tell you Mario 2 or Mario 3 are like the best. Personally, when it comes to the NES games, Mario 1 reigns supreme. Like, that was the game that redefined console gaming at that time. And then, you know, Legend of Zelda came out soon afterwards and basically did the same thing. And you could argue the same for games like Dragon Quest and, you know, Portopia Serial Murder Case. I mean, I don't like Dragon Quest, but it is a very important game. And Super Mario Bros. Deluxe really does a very good job at bringing the original game over to Game Boy Color. The one thing that holds it back is the screen. The screen being smaller does make it harder in places. But they do account for that difficulty by, you know, changing certain things to account for the screen resolution, like where you can always see Lack 2 even if he's above where he's supposed to be on screen. And being able to look up and down with the camera does help at points. It does have its uses. Being able to play as Luigi is nice. Being able to save wherever you want is also nice. Like, just being able to save wherever you want is a nice... it's a really good, I would say, and very helpful quality of life improvement. In the original game, if you died and ran out of lives, you had to continue by pressing a button code, and even then, you had to restart the world you got up to. You get up to the boss, you got to restart that whole world again. And that can take a while to get back up to where you got up to. So, certainly, there are things about Super Mario Bros. 1 that are appreciated. And, yeah, certainly that plays in its favour. It has tons of extra features that make it, in a way, more than the original. It's got a whole bunch of extra content, all the challenge modes, the Game Boy printer features, that weird fortune teller thing. Basically, they said, okay, we know that Super Mario Bros. 1 is kind of a short game when you break it down. It's kind of difficult in a way, but it's short. We need to add a whole ton of content to make this game more worth buying in 1999. And it's certainly, when you look at it, it's a far better game than something like Missile Command, which is an okay remake of the original, but maybe isn't nearly as good as it could have been. So yeah, it's better than Missile Command. It's better than R-Type, certainly. It's better than Wave Race. It's better than the Japanese version of Space Invaders, which is not the same as the international one. I cannot stress this enough. It's certainly better than Golf. It's better than King of the Zoo. It's better than Mega Man 4. Mega Man 4 is really good. But Super Mario Bros. Is an all-time classic. It's better than Solomon's Club. It's better than Pipe Dream. Is it better than Super Mario Land? Because I love Super Mario Land. I mean, really, the Game Boy is the domain of Super Mario Land, and the NES is the domain of the original Super Mario Bros. More so than the SNES or the Game Boy Color. But Super Mario Land is also a very short game. You play it, there is the hard mode, but that's about it. That game maybe better suits the Game Boy. But Super Mario Bros. 1, when you break it down, it is the better game. It's certainly a lot more solidly built than Super Mario Land, so I'm going to put this above that. It's better than Netto, the King of Fighters 97. But is it better than Pokemon Generation 1? I mean, that game is kind of jank. I'm going to say it is. As good as Pokemon Generation 1 is, I don't know, though. I mean, the thing with Super Mario 1 on Game Boy Color, it's maybe a little bit fast. Not being able to see as far ahead of you can be an issue, because the games were really designed with the TV screen in mind rather than a Game Boy screen, and that, I think, holds it back. You know, it's kind of a game that... It's a case that this can only be so good. It's not better than Pokemon Generation 1. Is it better than King of Fighters 97? Because that is a... Even though it's missing Terry and Geese, it is still a really top-tier fighting game on the Game Boy. It doesn't suffer from like screen resolution issues or anything. They really made that game work as... You know, King of Fighters work as best as possible within the confines of the Game Boy screen. When I think about it, if I had to choose between Super Mario Deluxe and Netto King of Fighters 97... No, thinking about it, I think King of Fighters 97 is still the better game. Even with its blatant character omissions, I think it's the better game. So I think Super Mario Bros. Deluxe is our new number 12. It's a really good game, but I would maybe still prefer the NES version just a little bit. But anyway, yeah, I've been going for nearly 2.5 hours. I'm feeling really shaky right now, so I'm going to go get myself some dinner. And I'd like to thank you all for watching, so take care and enjoy your evening. See you later.